I probably forget everybody's birthdays, but I'll never forget 2 dates. The day my daughter was killed, and the day Michael was killed.
For Harry and Mary Schaub, the calendar can be a cruel reminder of fate. Their children, who were born just 18 months apart, were shot and killed 18 months apart. Nancy in a domestic incident in 2010, and Michael in the Western Psych mass shooting on March 8th, 2012.
It was just like any other day. We were busy working. We have a small little restaurant.
It was lunchtime here at the old Route 66 Grill in Greensburg, and Mary had just gotten off the phone with Michael, who was a therapist at the hospital. Mary ended with her usual motherly advice.
I always say, be safe and I love you, and he says, don't talk like that.
Seconds later, Michael was shot and killed by a gunman in the lobby.
I was in complete denial because we had lost our daughter 18 months before that.
Years later, still heartbroken and lost, Mary's friends took her on a trip to try to clear her head. They were in Las Vegas. This time, the date October 1st, 2017, the night a masked gunman opened fire near the Strip, killing 58 people.
She calls me from under a table saying they're shooting. And I'm like, what if...
People are flying through the door, they're all muddy.
All of it a recurring nightmare meant for a movie, not a family of 4. But they have turned their grief into action, raising hundreds of thousands of dollars for scholarships through a memorial softball tournament. And they decided to talk with us to share one core message. You can help break the cycle of violence.
If we can just from this interview start the conversation. I mean, just everybody sit down and just say, this is insane. When is it going to end?
Mary says if people know how these stolen guns are flooding into our communities, they have to speak up.
Just tell one person that can tell somebody else.
Harry and Mary know they can't solve the world's problems, but they told me they'll never stop trying, and they know their kids wouldn't have it any other way.
I always said if I could bottle this pain and just throw it like a COVID virus so everybody can experience what we feel for just one day, that person holding the trigger might change his mind, saying, "My God, I don't want to do this."
In Greensburg, Catherine Amenta, Channel 11 News. Pittsburgh is no stranger to being on the cutting edge of medicine, and we recently got an exclusive look at a treatment for blood cancers that is saving lives right here at home. I sat down with a woman from Canonsburg who made history at UPMC.
We had just gotten back from vacation and I felt ill. I thought it was a flu or something.
It sounds like a story for so many after coming home from a long vacation. But in 2017, the story took a much different turn for Sherry Kinsley.
After going to the hospital, I finally got the official diagnosis that it was aggressive large B-cell lymphoma.
Her disbelief quickly turned into determination. Sherry was hopeful that the chemo would work and she'd be here for her daughter's high school graduation the next year.
They tried 2 or 3 different regimens of chemo and none of them worked, and it kept spreading.
Her options were suddenly running out. But Sherry had 2 things on her side: timing and that she was in Pittsburgh.
I was blessed with the opportunity to tell Sherry that there was one more thing that was now available and she was a candidate for it.
I talked to Sherry's doctor, James Rossetti, a hematologist at UPMC Hillman Cancer Center. In 2018, the FDA had just signed off on something called CAR T-cell therapy for certain types of lymphoma. CAR T-cell therapy is a process where they take some of Sherry's white blood cells and send them out to a lab. The cells are re-engineered to recognize Sherry's specific cancer and then taught how to attack it. Then they're infused back into Sherry. Like so many other innovations, UPMC was a key part of the clinical trials.
But many of the patients we had treated didn't have quite the aggressiveness of disease course that Sherry did.
If Sherry agreed to the treatment, she would become only the 2nd patient at UPMC to ever get the infusion after FDA approval. Dr. Rossetti showed me what they were up against in her PET scan.
It's everywhere. It's in her bones primarily. You can see it's in the center of her chest.
Sherry called it a Hail Mary, but still wanted to try. And just look at her PET scan results 2 months later. 0 signs of cancer.
So she went from cancer everywhere to no cancer.
Correct.
This is remission?
This is a remission PET scan.
Dr. Rossetti cautions that CAR T-cell therapy is not a cure, and not every patient responds like Sherry. Right now, the immunotherapy is only approved for patients who already tried 2 different regimens of the treatment. And I asked Dr. Rossetti why it's only FDA approved as a last resort. He says it's very difficult on the patient's body, and because chemo still works.
We're not to the point yet where we're going to throw all of that away. Some of those treatments are very effective for some patients and do result in long-term remissions and at times even cure. Great to see you.
Even so, Dr. Rossetti says they're learning fast, and CAR T could soon be used much earlier. As for Sherry, her cancer did return, but she's in remission again and comes to Hillman for preventative care. And just this month, she got to see her daughter graduate from college, all because she said yes to innovation.
If it's the chance that you have and it's an opportunity you have, don't let it go by.
UPMC Hillman was recently selected as one of the first sites in the country to now use a 6th type of CAR T-cell therapy on blood cancers. And they're also part of clinical trials for CAR T on solid tumors, like in lung cancer. To learn more about UPMC's clinical trials, go to WPXI.com.
How about we just have a book for a baby?
Janelle Caparelli remembers the day in 2018 she found out her daughter Nora had leukemia. A doctor broke the news to her in the ER, but she knows it doesn't always work like that, and that every day patients are learning their blood work, mammogram results, and pathology reports in their patient portal.
The diagnosis itself is earth-shattering, so I can't imagine having gotten that news via an app.
The debate goes back to 2016, when Congress was looking to improve patient access to information. They instructed the Department of Health and Human Services to develop a regulation. So in 2021, HHS mandated that healthcare providers give patients access to all health information without delay.
I think the overall intent is very good of what the law wants.
I sat down with Dr. Robert Bart, Chief Medical Information Officer at UPMC. He says in his experience, many of his patients want their results as soon as possible, and doctors need to prepare the patients ahead of time.
When a patient or family leaves your office, you've told them this is what you could expect from the results.
Still, the American Medical Association says, quote, emotional and mental harm is being done. Their recent survey found less than half of patients want their results immediately. Now, HHS did create the preventing harm exception. That allows doctors to hold back a life-altering diagnosis, but the AMA says the rule is too vague. Dr. Bart does think one improvement is to broaden the definition of immediately for when results need to be posted.
They would come in all hours, early, through the middle of the night, late evening. It's not always during the business hours.
Dr. Bart says before 2021, UPMC would hold those results until the next morning so patients can call their doctor. But now the results have to go out right away, and he hopes patients can resist the urge to Google what medical terms mean.
But at 10 o'clock at night, what are our options?
I get that the options are challenging, but if you can hold off and then talk to your office or the clinician the following day, that would be the best practice.
Now, Dr. Bart did offer 2 other options. One, you can reach out to the on-call doctor, but just realize that doctor may be busy with an emergency. And 2, you can tell the ordering clinician before the test that you don't want results posted until you hear from your doctor. Catherine Amenta, Channel 11 News.
That's a lot to figure out when you're 18.
At 31 years old, Rachel Radke says she's now strong enough to look back and share her battle with addiction and mental health.
I'm getting ready to start college, and I am addicted to heroin, and then I am pregnant. Okay, so it's like major disaster.
The Mount Lebanon mother of 3 says she doesn't shy away from remembering those lonely years in 2008. Rachel was pregnant with her oldest son, Asher, and she was desperately trying to stay clean. She went on methadone to help.
I faced a lot of stigma in the hospital, making some little snide comments about the choices I had made.
For 17 long days, Asher stayed in the hospital for detox.
It was heartbreaking. It was heartbreaking. It was awful.
Eventually, Asher went home a healthy baby boy, and 5 years later, his brother Isaac came along. But Rachel's ups and downs continued.
Other times it was I just gave up because I was totally exasperated with feeling like crap for a decade and, just gave up and self-medicated.
Then everything changed in 2019. Baby number 3 was on the way. Rachel had a job, she was doing well in school, and was staying clean with the help of Suboxone. But she was scared it wouldn't last. And that's when her doctor recommended UPMC McGee's Pregnancy Recovery Center. Tucked away in this peaceful office space, the center's reach cannot be measured. Since 2014, their doctors, nurses, and social workers have tailored outpatient support for women, from mental health services to finding a job to managing a happy and healthy pregnancy.
It's important to kind of normalize the pregnancy and how excited they are to be a mom and how excited they are to have a child.
Dr. Elizabeth Kranz says the key is tearing down the stigma.
We should have the same response when we learn that somebody's on insulin for their diabetes that we learn that somebody's on methadone for their opioid use disorder.
And she says the program's proof is in their newborns.
It's really changed the entire dynamic, and we have seen our treatment rates for the baby just totally plummet. Less than 5% of babies are now need to receive medical therapy.
For Rachel, her daily battle has turned into a routine monthly check-in at the center. And now she's using her newfound freedom to help others.
I know that the PRC, it's just improved my outcomes tremendously. I know it's done that for other women. And there's no reason to, be afraid or ashamed or to suffer or be sick when there's other choices out there.
To date, the Pregnancy Recovery Center has helped more than 700 women and 200 babies. And their services are available to all women, even if they're not pregnant. For more information about making an appointment, go to our website, WPXI.com. Catherine Amenta, Channel 11 News.